family, welcome back to another video. So in today's video I am going to be giving you all 5 simple tips to help you have a easy, successful start to breastfeeding. I have been breastfeeding for 25 months. It was not an easy beginning, but we definitely found our way, because at this point I don't know if my child is ever going to wean himself. So I just want to take all my wisdom and what I have learned on my breastfeeding journey, and now I want to share it. But before we get into the video, make sure that you are subscribed to my channel. Now let's hop into these tips. So the first tip is going to be to take a class before you give birth. It is always easier to do something when you have education about it. I know a lot of stuff is virtual right now, so there are a lot of lactation consultants and organizations offering online classes, online support groups, and also get connected to your local WIC office, because that's a free resource. Taking that class will connect you to your local lactation counselors and consultants, and it'll also connect you to local moms that can support you on your breastfeeding journey. Online support groups are also really good as well, because people are always up, and when it's the middle of the night with the newborn, it's a place you can go and ask your questions and not feel like you're bothering someone in the middle of the night. So take a class before you have your baby, because just because breastfeeding is natural does not mean it's going to come naturally and come without any hiccups and bumps in the road, because at the end of the day, this baby is brand new to earth and they're trying to figure out everything, and this is your first time breastfeeding that baby, because every journey is going to be different. So take a class, get that education, learn what normal baby breastfeeding behavior is and what's not, so that you know when your baby is cluster feeding that it's normal and it's cluster feeding and it's typical baby behavior, and it's actually building your milk supply. Whereas sometimes moms think when babies are cluster feeding that they don't have enough milk because the baby constantly wants to latch. But milk production is all about supply and demand, and so that constant feeding is actually boosting your supply. But that's information that you will learn in your breastfeeding class. I just want to give you some tips. The next tip is going to be focused on latching your baby. So somewhere out there, they came up with this myth that you're going to feed your baby every 2 to 3 hours, and they're going to nurse for 10 minutes on one side and 10 to 15 minutes on another side, and they're going to be done, and that's it. And that could be the furthest thing from the truth for most babies, especially newborn babies. Most newborn babies are going to want to nurse often, very often. They might latch for a short period of time, they might latch for a long period of time. The best thing to do is to just focus on latching the baby and nursing them until they unlatch on one side, and then offer them the next side. If they want it, great. If they don't, start with that side for the next feeding. But don't worry about timing the feedings. Don't worry about making sure it's been 2 to 3 hours. Don't worry about a schedule. It is so much simpler if you simply just latch the baby, ditch the timer, and just focus on latching and bonding with your baby, especially in the early days. The next tip is to feed the baby, not the freezer. When I tell you, I see so many moms stressed out because they feel like they're not making enough milk, or they're doing something wrong because they're only pumping 2 or 3 ounces. But this is after they have nursed their baby. Can I just say that especially in the early days, you really do not have to worry about pumping at all, especially if you're going to be home with your baby. Now, if you don't have maternity leave, I know it sucks in the United States. I know it sucks. I know that situation looks different for everybody, and some people may not have a choice but to start pumping very early on. But if you do have maternity leave, then the first few weeks should be spent just focusing on getting a good latch and feeding your baby. You don't have to worry about feeding your baby and pumping to have milk stored up in the freezer. I do recommend getting a Haakaa. That way, in those early days when your letdown is stronger and you might have a problem with leaking, the Haakaa is a really good easy, simple way to just simply suction it on to the other side to catch the letdown. But I do not recommend latching your baby, then staying up another 20 minutes to pump, and then another 10 minutes cleaning the part, because that is time that you, as a brand new postpartum mom, need to be resting, taking care of yourself, making sure that you are eating, not worrying about building a freezer supply. In the early days, just focus on feeding your baby. Another tip that I have, and I know a lot of people ain't gonna like it, but it is to skip the supplements and all of the so-called milk boosters. So while some herbs can boost milk supply for some moms, those same herbs can have other side effects. For example, a common one is fenugreek. So for some people, it can boost milk supply. It's in like mother's milk tea and different milk boosting supplements and things like that. But for some women, it can drop their blood sugar. Sometimes it can make babies fussy. You just never know. Instead of focusing on making sure that you are taking all these supplements and drinking all these teas and drinking the Body Armor and the Blue Gatorade and all of this other stuff, instead of focusing on the supplements, focus on ensuring that breastfeeding is going well. Because it doesn't matter how much tea you drink and how many Blue Gatorades you drink, if you are not moving milk, you're not going to continue to make milk. In those days, you need to focus on making sure that your baby's latch is good, making sure that you are either latching, and if you're unable to latch for a reason like your baby is in the NICU or your baby is not able to latch, then if you want to keep your supply up and continuing to progress with your breastfeeding journey, then you need to make sure that you are pumping or latching at least every 2 to 3 hours. Remember, I said that newborns may want to latch more frequently, and that is okay because it is about supply and demand. But at minimum, you need to be moving milk to make milk every 2 to 3 hours. You need to keep that supply and demand going. I want to make it clear that I'm not anti milk boosting supplements and things like that. But all those supplements and things are not going to sustain your breastfeeding relationship. And my last tip is to seek help and support if you need it. If you run into issues with breastfeeding, do not feel like you are alone. Breastfeeding is a journey, and we all need support and help on our journey at one point or another. So take advantage of your WIC office, like I mentioned. Take advantage of online support groups. Take advantage of people in your community who have breastfed. And if you need professional help, seek out your local certified lactation consultants. If you need to have your baby assessed for lip ties or tongue ties, please be sure to seek out the help of a IBCLC, someone who knows how to properly assess your baby for ties. Do not listen to pediatricians or anybody that tells you that ties don't affect breastfeeding relationships, because they do. And just ensure that you have the support and the help that you need it, and you take advantage of it should you need it. So those are my 5 tips for successful breastfeeding. Make sure that you give this video a thumbs up if it helps you. Make sure to share it with anybody in your life that you may know who is a new mom or somebody expecting, who has concerns about breastfeeding. And make sure to follow me on Instagram at Ray the Doula for more birth and breastfeeding and all things related topics. And then make sure you follow me on my personal page at Everyday with Ray for just me and my journey. And I will see you in the next video. Peace and blessings. Oh, and this is kind of a tip, but not a full-on tip. This is just, if you didn't know, be sure to check out your insurance, because you should get a free breast pump. Most insurances give you the choice to pick whichever one you want, and they mail it to your door for free. So make sure you take advantage.